G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we are joined with a very special guest, the People's Prince Calvinator, on to talk about some player battles. Let's go!
Just done it from nowhere. Hoisted the goal from inside the field. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty. Petty. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy. Today I'm joined by Luke Rojo. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm going well.
And I'm joined with Calvin.
Coach of Calvinator.
Yeah. You beauty. Literal goosebumps over here. Goosebumps.
Wanted to get that one in. Well, Calvin, thank you first and foremost for being on the podcast with us today, mate. Very generous of you to give up your time for the little folk like us. This is the reason they call you the People's Prince. So thank you very much.
Mate, yeah. I've been tracking you blokes. I've been monitoring your quest on followers and all that. It's very entertaining. I love it. It's good.
Yeah, thanks for playing ball and letting us catch you and Roy and Warney. So a little bit of fun and games in there.
Absolutely, all good fun.
It's all good.
Just quietly, Mitch, I'm shitting my pants today. I'm so excited.
We've got a celebrity on the show.
That's what I mean, mate. It's not every day you get to talk to a celebrity, so I'm excited as they come, but I'm packing my dacks a little bit as well. But no, thank you, Calvin, for coming on, mate. Looking forward to talking a bit of shit and talking some fantasy.
So today's show, we're gonna be putting Calvin to the test. We're gonna be coming up with there's a few players that we're gonna be debating one-on-one now. Different to Pokemon, fantasy, AFL Fantasy, you can't catch them all. So you've got to pick and choose. There's some hard decisions that need to be made. So today's podcast, and we've got a few more lined up as well of a similar sort of format where we're going between a few players of a similar price, similar position, and we're going to be debating who is the best selection. If you had to pick one of these guys, who are you having on your team? So we've got a defender, a mid, and a forward on today's show. So we're going to kick it off, first of all, by starting with our defensive line. Luke, you're going to be debating first for, who have you got? Tommy Stewart. And Calvin, you've got the sick dog over there in Hawthorn.
Sick dog.
Yeah, so let's get this one going here.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Mitch on the audio effects.
Let's get ready to rumble here.
These effects are elite.
Yeah.
Warning needs to take lessons off you, blokes.
So let's get ready to rumble. I'm going to throw it over to you first here, Cal. You've got the sick dog here. Tell us why he needs to be in our AFL fantasy sides this year.
Okay, the sick dog. As we know, the dog came back last year. A lot of people didn't really want to jump on the dog early, but those who did, and one was myself, reaped the rewards. Now, he averaged 96 for the year. He had 7 tons in that. Sorry, no, he didn't. He had 10 tons in that. And the thing is with the sick dog, he takes the kick-ins.
He does.
Okay, so 66 out of the 69 last year for the Hawks he played on. So he splits that with
He's greedy.
Hardwick.
Greedy.
He is. But the thing is with the sick dog, the reason why you can have him in your team this year, because he's not going to be any worse. He's not coming off a knee injury anymore. And let's face it, Hawthorn are going to be shit. The ball will be down there.
That's a hot take there, Cal.
Often, he will just have an absolute field day back there. So I think you can easily start with him. As you said, priced at 96. I don't think he's going to be any worse than that. Over to you.
So do you think, Cal, that Hawthorn will be considerably worse than they were this year? What do you think?
Oh, man, yeah. They're going to be a lot worse.
How much worse?
100%.
I do. It's hard to argue with you in terms of the kick-ins. When a guy is just that hungry for kick-ins, you just got to notice that, don't you? So I definitely think that works in the sick dog's favour. Now, a couple of things that I'm sort of thinking. My thinking is I just don't know how much worse Hawthorn will be, and they were already so bad, and he averaged that 96. I think that you're right in saying that he's not going to be any worse. I just don't know how much upside there potentially is. And for me, I'm looking to try and find some guys where there is a little bit of upside, a little bit of cash generation there. Now, in terms of Tommy Stewart, in the 9 games leading up to his suspension, he averaged 110, including ceiling scores of 169 and 157. Now, we know the sick dog has a ceiling, but Tommy Stewart's right up there with him in terms of his ceiling. So I think my thinking on Tom Stewart as well is I think there could be a little bit of a chip on the shoulder there. I think there could be a little bit
after
of a...
After the
suspension, there's that, undisciplined act. Yes, they won the grand final, but I think he might be thinking, hey, I've got a little bit to prove to the boys in terms of that as well. And I think that could mean that he comes out and goes big. Now, he's a guy that plays high time on ground. He's always been around that 80 to 90% time on ground, okay, often in the 90s. And I just see that they are much of a muchness, but for me, I just see that potentially there's more upside there in Tommy Stewart. What are you thinking, Mitchell?
So Tommy Stewart gets tagged, though.
That's a good point.
Tommy Stewart attracts a tag. So he got some attention there as well. So he got tagged in the grand final for 62. And then it was Mitch Owens. Mitch Owens got him for a 46.
Clamped him. And
well.
I think that 46, from memory, I think he was lucky to get that 46. I think he was something like 10 or something at half time and saved at the end there. So
Do you think that what saves the sick dog from that tag is just how bad Hawthorn are? It's like if you were going to tag anyone, you'd tag him, but why bother tagging anyone because they suck? Is that kind of where your mind is there?
It's like you haven't tagged North Melbourne for a few years. I think, Hawthorn are probably going to go to that.
I don't know why.
I'll ask you both a couple of questions.
Okay.
So I'll throw it over to you first here, Cal. So Siciliy, he's... In the past, I mean, different coach now with Sam Mitchell there, but in the past, he's been a guy that, have they named him as a captain just yet, or is he just rumoured to be there?
There's lots of talk, so I don't know if it's official.
Anyways, he's a guy that's sort of got that team first mentality, and sometimes he gets, I know back in the day he was thrown forward a few times, but he also has the ability to be a taller defender and actually play some defence, which we don't like with our fantasy players. We want them to actually just be racking up the pill. Any concerns from you there, Cal, in terms of Siciliy actually playing some lockdown defence and maybe forgetting about those kick-ins and fantasy points from that point of view?
100%, yeah. They could move him forward and Sam Mitchell might wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Who bloody knows? It's a bit of a chook raffle with those guys, I think, at the moment. As I said, I like Sick, though, over Stewart. Look, Sick Dog played, I think, every game last year. I don't think Stewart's done that probably the last 3 or 4 seasons. So, you got to go the dog.
It's a good point.
Tom Stewart, just to reference that, 17 games last year, 20 the year before, 14 the year before. Last time he played 22 was 2019. So the stats do back you up there, Calvin.
Yeah, and you've also got the age factor there. I'm finding myself starting to go with the Calvinator.
Don't be swayed.
He's
Stay strong.
He's just so persuasive, you see. He's so persuasive.
Don't do that.
But you've got the age factor there as well. So if we look at the age factor, Sick Dog's right in his prime and Stewart's probably coming towards the end of it as well. Looking at both of their draws to start the season, first 10 games, they're pretty much on par. Stewart has 3 games against teams that allow defenders to score big, and he's got 3 against teams that lock defenders down. And to be honest, Sicily's kind of draw to start with is pretty similar. So you can do some digging into that yourselves as well, but nothing that stood out to me either way there.
The other question I was going to ask you, Luke, is Mitch Duncan. A lot of people seem to be concerned about how he is going to affect Tom Stewart this year. I will raise the fact, though, that I'm pretty sure Mitch Duncan played that half-back role for all of last year. So are you concerned with that? Maybe another year in that role, Mitch Duncan takes some points off Stewart? Or
Look, I think there's no doubt. There's no doubt he does take some points off Stewart, but when nothing has changed for me, then there's no reason to have significant concern or suddenly be talking about things as if they have changed. Like you said, he was essentially in that role last year. Stewart was back there and they scored what they scored. So, Stewart's got the ceiling, but Sick Dog's got a ceiling as well, doesn't he? So, there's a reason they're priced at a similar price.
Very, very similar players, both intercept sort of defending type that will be the quarterbacks of their team. So we won't necessarily award a winner here, but the fans will let us know in the comment section down below. Who do you think had that first?
I started buddy debating with Calvin, so I think
keep the passion, mate. Where are you going?
Oh, I told you he's persuasive, mate. He's persuasive.
We'll move into the midfield now, and we're going to talk about a guy that I know that you're very keen on, and I've listened to a few of your podcasts early in the season. Rory Laird, the only $1 million man this year, versus Jack Steele, who I'm going to be arguing for, who was $1 million man last season. Again, I'll throw it over to you first, Calvin, who convinced me why I'm paying the extra. How much is it? Nearly $100,000 to get a Rory Laird instead of just starting with my boy Steele.
Okay. Number one, Laird takes away any confusion, any doubt around your captaincy. Let's just start with that one.
Yep.
He is a 120-plus guy without even thinking about it. We have a look at the way he finished the season. So you had 129 after his bye. Now, before his bye, he was pumping out scores. His best score before his bye was like 124, okay? After his bye, 163, 138, 136, 132, 130. He got shit going in the second half.
He did.
So at the start of the year, interrupted preseason, where he only averaged like 104 across his first 4. So a slow start. They were the only games he has missed basically in the last 4 years. So he's durable. He's got a pink tail. He's got a snout. He goes at 129 in the back half of the year. And all these people going, we all agree, you're going to need Laird at one point this year.
You will.
Right?
Yep.
You're not going to go the whole season, right?
Yeah.
So people who sit back and go,
Not like I
it's
tried to
Grimes,
last year.
you can't get it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Once, if you don't have him, you can't get him. And everyone's going to go, I'll just wait for him to drop. Well, the way he's going and the fact he's coming off a full preseason, it may not happen.
I will say,
that is my argument.
I was, I had a last season when I was fighting to stay in the top 100 here. I was determined to do it without Rory Laird, more so as like a pride thing, because I think
it wasn't going to happen.
Based off the stats that I saw, I think I was like at one point one of 2 coaches that were in the top 100 without Rory Laird, and it ultimately defeated me at the end of the season. So I know exactly what you're talking about there, Calvin. It's hard to do it without a man like that. But I wanna read you some stats in rebuttal here. Now, just listen to these stats. These are post-buy stats. Now, just listen to these numbers: 114, 157, 138. 149, 106, 162, 139, 103, 134. Those are the stats and the games that Jack Steele put up after the bye in 2021, so the year prior to last year, where he actually finished with a higher post-bye average than Rory Laird did last season. And we all jumped on last year, and look how that turned out. He obviously he had a down year with 110 average.
Yeah.
Obviously, the shoulder injury was something that put that average down a little bit further. But in saying that, even to start the season last year, look, there's still decent scores. 107, 105, 101, had a 130, 112, 110, 115. They're decent scores, but they're not the 130 that he finished the last season with. And I think that Rory Laird is going to follow that same kind of script that Jack Steele did the last season. So I would argue that you're going to be able to get a Rory Laird. They're kind of the same archetype of player, but you can just get him for $100,000 cheaper. I expect them to go very similar in price, and I reckon I'm saving that money. And I still feel happy. Like you said, I'm whacking the C on Steele every week. Feel pretty comfortable and happy to sleep with that at night. Hopefully, at some point, I can get Rory Laird as well. And I don't think, again, you can start with both of them. So no. I think you've got to pick and choose there.
It is a dangerous game, but I kind of have to agree with Calvinator in the sense that you're just playing a dicey game. If Laird goes big to start the season, your season could be done. But in saying that, Laird hasn't been in my team as yet. What's swaying you, Mitch? Is it the shaved head for Jack Steele?
The buzz cut?
He means business?
Mate, he means business. Anyone who goes and gets a buzz cut in the off-season, they're not worrying about anything but fantasy scores, I reckon. So I think that's obviously a tick in his favour, but it's the price for me. You might as well spend 100,000 less, and I think you're going to get roughly the same sort of thing. I've got them both sort of my M1, M2 sort of flip-flopping each day, but the price to me is that sort of thing. What to you, Calvin, is different this season than Jack Steele was last season? Do you see there being a difference in terms of how Rory Laird starts compared to how Jack Steele started last year?
So I actually had a look at Rory Laird, who he's got to start off with at least. So he's got the Giants away. Okay, yep. Last time we played them last year, he was tagged by Ash. Still got 118 though. Okay. Then he's got Richmond at home. And then he goes into 3 of the hardest teams that for midfielders to score against in Port Adelaide, Fremantle and Carlton. So if you want to have a look at the scale of hardness, it's not awesome for him.
Okay.
But then after that, he plays Hawthorn and Collingwood.
Yeah.
Who were the 2 of the easiest teams to score against. Look, I'm a big fan of Jack Steele. We had a big chat about him today. The buzz cut gets it done for us as well. But
cool.
he came back after that injury and was actually arguably better. 124, 114, 121, 117, 150 odd. So
115 after the bye, I think I've got here.
Yeah, so he was still very good, and that's with a dirty 65 in it.
Yeah, that's a tag game, which I don't know how many tag games we're getting for Jack Steele, but obviously a 65 tag game versus a 118 tag game, it's a little bit of a difference.
You sure Lockie Ash laced up the boots? It doesn't sound like he tried to go.
I don't know if you can really call that a tag effort at all there. I was just going to...
Yeah. On that, though, I think I'll give you the win on Jack Steele. Okay, I'm okay with that. I'm a big Jack Steele fan. He's in my team at the moment.
Okay.
And Rory Laird, I'm a bit like you. Laird comes in and out for me all the time. I just think there's just too much value there for Steele. A guy who's gone 120, he's easily going to be up around that 115, 120 mark again.
I will just throw out just one more stat because I think they're remarkably similar. Like in 2021, Jack Steele had 6 games where he went over 10 tackles. How many games over 10 tackles did Laird have last season? 6. So the exact same. Last year, Steele went down to 2 games over 10 tackles. So when you have that as sort of the reason your scores are so high, I don't know if it's super sustainable to expect that year in, year out. The one thing I will say about Rory Laird that might mean that he is slightly underpriced, and this is a big might. He only plays 78% time on ground.
Wow.
So compared to an 80, I think it was 85% for a Jack Steele and a lot of other premium midfielders, they're usually playing in the mid-80s. Rory Laird got it done on less than 80% time on ground, and if that ever does increase, potentially it could happen. I would argue that if the time on ground increases, the points per minute maybe decrease, and it kind of balances itself out, but it wouldn't shock me if Rory Laird does take it up. So it is a risk to take him on, but sounds like you and me, Cal, are both ready to do so. So let's move on to our last bout here. We've got the former teammates.
We do.
Coniglio versus Taranto. Now, obviously, there's no secret here that we're big Richmond fans, so showing our bias a little bit on this one. But Luke, you've got Taranto. I might throw it over to you first, mate.
Yeah, no problems. Now, obviously, to start off with Timmy T, there's the new club factor, and everyone kind of, I think, gets on that hype of new club, what will we see scoring-wise. Now, if you were going to go to a new club for fantasy scoring, this is not the club you would go to.
Yeah, maybe pick one of the other ones. Yeah.
You wouldn't go to the Tigers. So, we'll touch on that. We've touched on that before. The Tigers tend to limit fantasy scoring just with the style of game that they play. But digging into some of the stats, I just struggle to see a world where Tim Taranto doesn't go 110 or potentially more.
110.
I think it's when you look at the caliber of player that he is and you look at the role that he's going to be picking up in that Richmond midfield, I just think that he's going to be, around that 110. So I'll ask you a question, Mitch or Calvinator, either or. How many points better a player do you think Tim Taranto is than Dion Prestia?
I'll throw it over to you, Calvin.
Oh, that's a good one. Prestia was averaging 100 before he came to Richmond.
Prestia was averaging 100. So you're saying, how many points better do you think Timmy T is?
Okay, I'll give him. Yeah, he's a good 10 to 15.
He's got to be at least 10, doesn't he? And if we look back through the stats, even at Richmond, Prestia, when uninjured, of course, has been able to go close to the ton at Richmond. So I asked myself, yes, the style.
The big thing there is when uninjured. Which
okay. So
rarely,
we can dig into that.
Obviously, we're expecting Taranto to not obviously go down in a lump of injuries.
Yes, the Richmond game style restricts scoring, but if you look at the Richmond Cattle, you don't point at a player and say, that's an elite fantasy scoring player, whereas when you look at Tim Taranto, you say, this guy's elite. And if we look at him and say that he's 10 points better than Prestia, and a healthy Prestia was able to average 100 in that system, to me,
110.
Tim Taranto's at least 105, if not 110, I could almost say with confidence. In a similar vein, Jaden Short played in the midfield for Richmond predominantly last year, and when he was in the midfield, he averaged around that 97 mark. So you ask yourself, how many points better is Tim Taranto than Jaden Short as a midfielder? And I'd argue that it's at least 10 points as well. So these guys are similarly priced. Okay, the thing that I see is just the safety of Taranto. Even going into that new game style, he's not going in there to play 60% CBAs.
Yeah. I agree.
We saw an article.
Trent Coleman.
Trent Coleman is playing in the forward line, I've heard, down at the Tigers, and so
Koch
to me,
in the forwards. Yeah,
I think
Short's
Koch,
down back.
Yeah, and I think Koch took
forward.
most of the CBA percentage there at Richmond next year. So I'm expecting Tim Taranto at Richmond, 80% CBAs, 105, 110. What are you thinking, Calvinator?
I'm thinking with those guys there. I'm off Taranto as a starting option. I just don't think that he can score the points that we hope he's going to get. And a good example of that is your Jaden Short. So we're looking here. As a defender in the first 6 games last year, he went at 107 as a defender.
Yep.
So he was easily going to go in triple figures.
Yep.
Before that, you've got a Basher Hooley, who is a guy who has averaged over 100. No midfielder from their team can do it. And even when Short went into the midfield, he actually averaged less.
Yep.
So I'm just not convinced. Yeah, I agree. He could be that, the 100, 105 guy. So we'll wait and see how it goes. But you're dead right. He's going to get all the CBAs he wants. He's ripping up the time trials and all that sort of stuff. But for the sake of arguing, I think Coniglio is going to average more.
What about your boy Coniglio? Sell us on Cogs there.
Okay, it's all going to come down to the new coach. Okay, so yes, I'm hot on him, but we just need to make sure that things are going to play out. So Cogs needs CBAs. Okay, it's no bloody brainer there. Rounds the start of the year, he had very low CBAs in the first 9 weeks at an average of about 81.
Yep.
Get the guy in the middle and things change around. So from round 15 onwards, there's 8 games. He had way more CBAs and he goes at 106.
Yep.
So in games for the Giants last year where he had 50% CBAs, that happened 14 times, he averaged 107. In games where he had 70% of the CBAs, he went at 116.5.
It's pretty good.
So Calvin, are you worried at all about the fact that the new coach is a Richmond man? Does that pop up any flags for you at all? Or
shitting myself. 100% about that. Yeah, that's a massive concern. Yeah. It is a massive concern. And he's been with Richmond, who have been so successful, and now he's got his own job with a new team. Why not employ some of their style of play? So, yeah, it is a big concern. I just think that Cogs just needs CBAs. I'm looking here as well. So last year, and we're talking with obviously Hopper and Taranto leaving to give him these more CBAs. Yeah. He played 6 games without Taranto last year, and he was a 22-point better player.
Yeah, it's impressive. It's pretty impressive numbers.
So give him the CBAs, and it should take care of itself.
Surely he's in the middle this time. You're not putting bloody
yes.
I'm sure. I know Leon Cameron was,
he lost his mind.
He's a good man, but come on, mate, it's not that hard to see. Blind Freddie could see the man does better with CBAs. So,
definitely. One more or a couple more quick points on Taranto here. So. One more thing I think is the tackle numbers for Taranto. Mm-hmm. I know that Richmond's not a high tackling team, but of those Richmond midfielders that I mentioned that went around that 100 mark, they were kind of doing that on an average of 3 tackles. Taranto, over the course of his career, has almost averaged 5 to 6 tackles. So I think there's some tackling to be done that kind of gives him a little bit more upside as well. And then the other thing, Cal, you mentioned it too, with Coniglio is if that perfect role's not there, it's going to shit pretty quick. Whereas I think with Taranto, there is a possibility that if the role wasn't there for some reason and he did spend a little bit of time forward, I still think there could be some scoring to be had. But with all of these guys, you could almost flip a coin. So
I wanted to get your thoughts, Calvin, on if you had to put a number on what they're scoring. So if you had to have a prediction right now, Feb 6, on what Cogs is averaging and what Taranto is averaging, what would you say for both these boys?
Cool. Okay, I'll go Cogs at a 105.
Okay.
I'll have Taranto at a 104.
Okay, all right.
It's pretty much like that, but
what have you guys got them at?
Pretty tight. I think I've got Taranto probably like that 107, kind of between 105, 110, and then a Cogs maybe a 103. The other thing I will say is that Tim Taranto it's not much, but he's 30k cheaper than a Coniglio. Sorry, 25k cheaper than a Coniglio. So I can't off the top of my head figure out what that equals in points. But if they're going maybe 1 points difference of each other, and it's the difference that 25k is the difference between you getting maybe another guy up into your back line or whatever in your ruck, so you got to sort something out, then to me, I think you just go with the cheaper guy.
Do we all agree that we need to probably have both of them by season's end? Is that...
Yeah, I think they're both clearly top 6.
So is there a scenario where you start with both, Calvin?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
That's not the point of the show.
Sorry, it's a debate now. I got lost.
Well, 100% you could. And there's plenty of guys like these, and that... Once again, Pokemon, you can't have them all, fellas. But it's your Rosies, how many of these guys can you have in this forward line? And then we've got guys around them that are massive value as well. So I was looking at Roy's team today. He's actually got Taranto in his midfield.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Just to sort of spread the love a bit more that way. So
how do you feel about that?
Like
I personally, I don't know why, but it just feels a little dirty to me. I can't put my finger on it. But yeah, how do you feel about that sort of forward?
I'm the same, mate. Doesn't sit well with me either. But that's what Roy likes to do. He mixes it up a bit.
Maybe it's the new form of fantasy. Who knows? He could be onto something there. Well, that will do it for us today, guys. Again, you guys, the fans, you guys be the judge on who you think pulled out the win for today in each of the matchups. And let us know if you're Team Calvinator or the Team Ball Boys. And let us know, Calvin. You've had your midfielder podcast come out today. Yesterday by the time this podcast comes out. What else have you guys got going on for the rest of this preseason, man?
Oh, geez, we've got the draft kit coming out shortly, so we've been working hard on that. The footy record goes to print. I think it might be being printed now, the one that we do.
Yeah, so you guys are looking pretty schmick in your suits there, looking nice.
But it's the worst thing about it is you write the pieces for that like 4 weeks ago, and then everyone starts getting bloody injured. I will guarantee I will
pump
get
up
people
Christian Salem and pump up Darcy
he's my poster boy of the Melbourne team. And people just going to go, what do you know, you bloody idiot? And I'm like, mate, 4 weeks ago. So there's a few of those, but it's good. A good lot of reading.
Yeah, 100%. I do remember. We don't get a lot of those up here in Queensland, but there was a couple of years where my partner surprised me with the footy record, and they're really always a good read, just to sort of, get all those boys and all the the targets and stuff. So especially if you're new to the game and you're sort of starting your fantasy sort of track watching and that sort of stuff around this time, it's an excellent way to start. So make sure you guys, if you are keen, I think $9.95, $10, nice and cheap. You guys can pick those up. So be on the lookout for those coming out, and make sure you guys, obviously a lot of our audience would already be subscribed to you guys, but if you're not, make sure you guys do subscribe to the Traders. Got anything before we finish up?
Thanks so much, mate, for coming on. I don't know if you noticed, but I've just been smiling from ear to ear the whole episode. It's I know you guys don't consider yourselves celebrity, but when you're bloody sitting on your couch every Thursday night watching you guys, and then you actually get a chance to talk to you, it's pretty special. So we appreciate all your support, mate.
Not a problem at all, fellas. Loved it.
Yeah, thank you, guys. And if you did enjoy this episode, guys, make sure if you're over on YouTube, give this video a big thumbs up. We're on the quest to 1,000 subscribers. So
let's go.
Yeah, let's pump it up. Let's get these numbers up. We know that a lot of you guys that are listening are not subscribed. So if you are not subscribed, make sure you do so now. And if you haven't followed us as well on Twitter, at Ballboys Fantasy, at Luke Rojo 17, at Calvin DT. And thank you so much, guys. We'll catch you next time. Laters.